Content warning. Echo can be emotionally intense experience and may not be for everyone. Echo contains themes of adult nature, including violence, torture, drug usage, and harsh language. Viewer discretion is advised. We pull into the gravel parking lot in front of City Hall. The stucco structure looks a hell of a lot more weathered than I remember. Tarp drapes the roof and one of the windows is blacked out with plastic. City Hall is probably the oldest building still standing in Echo. From what I read on the county's website, it served as a town's post office back in the early 20th century. Before then, it was an outpost used as an intelligence operations center during the years leading up to the Mormon Rebellion. Government spies were planted in a nearby settlement from Colville to Payton and delivered their reports on potential agitators at this outpost. They actually kept a priest on hand to help reaffirm the spies' faith in the true word of Christ. It's weird to think that Sydney was the last Mormon I knew. Are you sure Flynn works here? I exited my car, watching Carl stare ahead. His eyes are half-lidded, the ram seeming to stare for miles beyond the building in front of us. Oh yeah, I'm sure. All right. Carl doesn't move. Are you gonna come out? The ram blinks slowly, his maw starting to hang agape. He shifts his bloodshot gaze shifts towards my torso. Nah, my parents would flip. He flops his wrist in front of him limply, his tone tinged with effeminacy. Of the car? Yeah, just give me a second. Carl reaches down, unscrewing the lid from his water bottle, taking a few hearty glugs. When Carl grabs the car door handle, he hesitates. After a moment, he looks at me. He's completely silent, sucking in his cheek on the side. Carl? Finally, he speaks. I sort of agreed to come without considering that I'd be talking to anyone but you and crew today. Let alone the mayor and stuff. I'm still stoned as balls and I look like shit. I think I might just chill here in the car with the air conditioning and high gun tactics. He opens up his phone and I think I can barely spot the icon for it's in his sea of other game apps. Carl doesn't look high though. He doesn't appear any worse than he usually looks. Telling him that probably won't do much for his confidence though. I'll let him stay. If he wants to stay in the car, I'll let him stay in the car. It's probably a good idea, all things considered. You gonna be alright in there? I mean, if you start to sober up, feel free to come get me. I could always use a hand. I'm good, man. He scoots back in the car seat some, leaning it back. You got me up way too early to be hanging out proper like anyhow. I'm usually asleep until like 3 hours from now. You really sleep until 2 o'clock? Yeah. Jeez. Hey, don't judge me. You're the interloper here. I'm about to make a jab about where Carl learned the word that large, but reading his expression, it's evident he's in the mood. And honestly, neither am I. I toss him the car keys and they bounce gently off the rotund bulk of his torso before he scoops them up off the floor mat. I'm gonna head inside and ask permission to film. Then maybe go through some files inside they let me. Carl grunts. They should. It's all like public record or something. Except for the aliens that crashed out here in the 40s. That's still classified, Agent Hunter. A pang of nostalgia shoots through me as I catch on to what Carl's referencing. A faint smirk tugging at the corner of my lip. When we were little, Carl and I used to run around in old church clothes and pretend we were to be G-men hunting it for aliens. H&H, Agent Hendricks and Agent Hunter. Our parents got so pissed at us for playing in the dirt in black formal wear, but we were super into it. Carl even drew up a zine sort of documenting the make-believe adventures. Eventually, Carl started getting really into superhero stuff and tried to segue our adventures into Superwolf universe. I didn't like Superwolf at all. Excuse me. 1 second. And after the argument where I called him too fat to be a hero, we ended our imaginary adventures. God, I was such a dick. Before I could say anything further, Carl's setting his phone aside and popping open my glove box. Do you still have those black sunglasses? Oh man, no. Leo said he liked them, so I gave the pair I had to him. I do have a tortoiseshell pair in there somewhere. Isn't that kind of girly? Carl gives me a sidelong look as he withdraws, the aforementioned pair holding them up to me. What? Guys can wear tortoise shell. It's not like they're polka dot or something. My mom wears these colored sunglasses all the time. I literally can't see these without picturing her. Well, like, that's your personal thing. No one else thinks that. He slides them onto his face, the rest somewhat awkwardly on his sizable snout, unable to settle in place neatly. Your nose is too big. Carl pulls the shades off his face and literally tosses them into the dash, leaning back into the seat with a long exhale. Alright, well, do your thing. I'll be here. Right. Be back soon, Carl. Yep. I turn, heading inside. Stepping into City Hall, the first thing I notice is how dry the air feels. Like there's no ventilation to speak of. It makes me feel like I'm standing inside a really slow baking oven. Half of me wants to run out and jump into the first body of water I can find, while the other half just wants to curl up into a ball and nap. The faint droning of a voice on a speaker is audible. It sounds like some sort of outdoorsy hunting and fishing podcast. Jace? Flynn's tall, leering form emerges from one of the doorways, a stack of envelopes in hand. We stare at each other for a few seconds as the reality of what we've done with one another is hanging pretty poignantly in the air. Hey. He exhales, his demeanor shifting, his raised shoulders going more lax, and his tail settles on the musty carpeted floor. What? He looks back through one of the doorways beside him, then back to me, his scaled brow furrowed. For a moment, my mind blanked, and I'm not sure what to do with my paws. It's really stuffy in here. Flynn looks at me questioningly. The only people who work here are reptiles, so we keep the habitat all dry and such. His gaze shifts back towards the doorway again before returning to me. There's something you want? I'm pretty busy. I clear my throat, crossing my arms against my chest. Yeah, I was hoping to get permission to film around City Hall and take a look at some records. What records you looking to go through? Well, I don't know. Flynn stares at me with an indiscriminable expression. I'm just looking for anything I can use in my report. So you don't have a parcel number or a date or anything. You just want to, what, browse? Well, maybe you could point me in the right direction. You're the city clerk after all. Flynn lets out a raspy exhale, moving to take a seat in his swivel chair in the front desk, his tail coiling around the base. All right, the reading room is off limits on the account the monsoon season took out a portion of its roof cover last year. I can set you up in the mail room with the microfiche and a computer for the time being. He grasps the edge of his desk, staring at the tips of his fingers. I need to check with the mayor to see what all you've got access to. Flynn's about to stand up again with another Gilla steps into the room. She's slightly overweight and decked out in khaki shorts with matching outdoorsy button up top. Despite being indoors, she dons a large sun hat, also khaki, with a vibrant floral bandana around her neck. This must be the mayor, Flynn's aunt. I thought I heard another voice in here. Maybe I should make it gravelly too. I catch the wind of perfume, a strong sweet pea scent that seems to fill the room. If I give her a southern, I gotta give Flynn a southern. Her slitted blue-green eyes focus on me. It's almost like she's sizing me up. Are you the Grand Committee? I pause quickly, shake my head. No, sorry. She visibly seems to deflate, her brow lowering and her eyelids drooping to a half-lidded lull. I'm Chase, Flynn's friend. That's so. Another one then? She looks towards Flynn, who's currently rubbing his temple. He responds quickly. An old friend, childhood. You met Chase before, I'm pretty sure, or at least seen him around town. She seems to think for a moment before a look of realization comes to her. Oh, I almost didn't recognize you with that thing on your chin. I most certainly remember you. I blink, reaching up, covering my goatee instinctively. Red flag, goatee! You were the one who always sit paddling around with that red wolf fella. Leo, weren't you? Gay couple, right? I chuckle a bit sheepishly, nodding. Having spent the past 3 years at Pueblo, I'm not used to people talking about me like as if I once was. Yeah, sort of. I mean, yes. She exchanges a glance with Flynn, who is looking at a bit tense. Chase is doing a school project on the town and wants access to the records we got on hand. He fill out a request form yet? No, he just wants to browse, I guess. Well, it's only public record stuff that I want to take a look at. You still have to go through the process. Usually the requests are just for parcel at a time. What sort of school project is this for, Chase? Well, I'm a journalism major at the University of Pueblo. I have to create a documentary-style video report on something. I chose Echo. You aren't aiming to smear us in the general public, then are you? Her tone suggests she's joking, but she has that some intense look, the same intense look that Flynn has, where I can't really tell for sure. No, Mayor. You know, we have a grant application that we're interested in putting out there that requires a video entry detailing the sites around town. Would you be interested in that sort of thing? Oh, well, maybe. I don't know. I guess I have to know more about the project. Honestly, I can't imagine the sheer amount of sugarcoating I need to muster to create a positive report about this place. Fill this out. Flynn is pushing a form across the desk my way. The mayor clears her throat. Chase, where it asks for lot/parcel request, you could just put all inventory. All right, will do. As I take a pen from Flynn and begin to write, I see him look up to his aunt. All inventory? Yes. All right, then. He huffs some idly. The podcasters on Flynn's computer speakers are going into detail about creating a complex fishnet and trappings. I'll leave you two boys to it, then. Welcome back to Echo, Chase. It's good to be back. Flynn subtly rolls his eyes, turning back to his computer. The mayor just smiles before heading back to what I assume is her office. I finish up the form in silence, pushing it back towards Flynn. He squints at it for a moment before speaking. Any word from Leo? The topic change catch me off guard. I look up to see Flynn leaning close, his voice lowered. Yeah, he believed the whole spending the night at Carl's story. Carl went along with it? Uh-huh. I ended up telling him the whole truth, though. I guess I just started to feel real shit about lying. Flynn leans back in his chair, suddenly clenching his eyes shut tight. He opens his mouth like he was going to say something, but merely shakes his head. Chase, you fucking realize that when this week is over, you just get to go back to college land. And I'm stuck here with the results of your shitty choices. You know Carl as well as I do. He wouldn't go telling Leo that to start drama. And anyway, he saw us, by your truck. Flynn's eyes open, and he just stares at the ceiling for a long moment. Fuck it. Let's get your musky ass up with a goddamn county guest login so you can access the GIS maps. He scoots back over towards his computer, beginning to type something in. I catch a glimpse of his desktop wallpaper. It looks like some sort of waterfall surrounded by a lush evergreen forest. It's kind of blurry, like a smaller image stretched to fit the screen size. I also see a few transparent stock image logos overlaid on it. We got physical records, the real old ones, stored in the mailroom, though I wouldn't say the shit there's very browsable. Some religious historical society type came by 8 months ago and helped us archive a lot of it. They're all in the labeled manila folders along with Southwall. Flynn turns back to the computer, peeking at the keyboard for a clerk. He's not remotely a fast typer. Oh damn, I forgot to ask permission to film here. Flynn grunts. Permission granted. Go do that while I get this fucking thing working. Glancing back at his screen, I see incorrect password, 2 remaining entries before lockout. Flash up. After looking at the keyboard, it takes me only a couple of seconds to figure out what's wrong. Flynn? What? He snaps at me, and I can see his pointed teeth between his scaled lips for a moment. You have the caps lock on. Flynn pounds the caps lock key with extra force before returning back to his typing. Thanks, now fuck off for a bit. I stare at him. I can't help but feel a twisting sensation in my chest. I'm not sure if I expected him to treat me differently after doing what we did, but I definitely don't think he'd treat me worse. I try to think of something to say to make this right, to make this not awkward as it seems to be getting. Yet, the longer I stay here, the more uncomfortable he seems to get. I guess I'm just really leering at him like a creep right now. Fuck. I get up and head out. Deciding to keep my mouth shut is the best course of action for the time being. The gravel parking lot makes it difficult to adequately line up my shot. Everything ends up looking slightly crooked. I know I can probably fix it all in post, but that's more work for me and I'm not looking forward to it. Carl, meanwhile, has his eyes glued to his phone. It looks like he found a pair of earbuds because he's got those in too. Refocusing, I take stock of the footage I've got from here so far. The midday sun means that my recordings are all pretty much well lit, but I can't help but think that a sunset would be more symbolic. Of course, because it's symbolic. Maybe I'll come back later. I don't know. My phone vibrates in my shorts. Grabbing it, I see I got a new message from Leo. With Jenna and TJ playing football. I'm assuming they mean soccer, but I decide now isn't the time to press him on the word choice. Sounds good. Sounds fun. Filming with Carl and Flynn here. I slid my phone back in my pocket, unlocking the trunk of the car so I could start putting away all this equipment. Huh? Quick response from someone playing soccer. Upon checking my phone, though, the message turns out to be from Carl. Get back to work. No texting. I look around the trunk hatch and see Carl's smirking muzzle, his chin buried in his hoodie. I love Carl. Stepping back behind the trunk, I begin to text back. Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. After hitting send, I set my phone down, beginning to lock up the camera in the neon orange University Pueblo hard case I borrowed. Another message from Carl. That's, oh, I'm so sorry, daddy, to you, boy. Jesus. Snickering, I text back. Don't play gay chicken with me. I will win. I finished packing up everything and shut the trunk, waiting for the next response. As off cue, my phone vibrate once again. I also realized that Flynn's standing at the city hall entryway with his arms crossed, staring furrow-browed at the car. Why the fuck is Carl just sitting in the car? Grinning, I hold up my finger to him. I look over the most recent message. I don't like chicken. I like cock, boy. I snark, electing a raised brow from the Gila. The hell are you two doing? I got your shit set up. You will not win this game, sir. Daddy, I told you, boy, don't make me spank you. Oh, he's fucking stoned off his rocker, ain't he? He ate too much of an edible this morning, apparently. Flynn looked at me, then back at Carl. Probably for the best, he's staying in the car then. Come on. He turns, heading back inside. I follow, watching Carl smiling to himself before going back to his mobile game. Flynn leads me through the narrow hallway, the ceiling laden with visible old piping and walls covered in dents and scratches. Ugh. Eventually, we turn into a colorful room that looks like a mix between an old post office and a kindergarten classroom. All right, like I said, archive files are in the back along with the south wall. The computer in the corner is logged into the county's GSI viewer, mapped and shit, basically. He points to the cream-colored computer that must be from around the early 2000s. By the look of the make, thus visible on top of the tower. Oh, so like, where their native burial grounds and that sort of thing are? Flynn crosses his arms, looking back down at me. Yeah, no. As far as I know, the Meseta tribal government hasn't put forth any scattered site claims within miles of Echo. Wow, really? Really? Why's that? I don't have a whiff of shit's worth of a clue or care. Go ask Jenna if you want to be all weird about it. I don't think she has much ties to her tribe. Yeah, well, it doesn't stop her from being a bitch about it whenever she sees fit. Flynn sucks in his cheeks as if saying that left a bit of an unpleasant taste in his mouth. Flynn speaking less than kindly towards folks isn't anything new, but not usually about Jenna. He looks down at some papers in his hands as if they suddenly were very interesting. Is this about what she said when you got Carl the lighter from the reservation? His slitted eyes flicked back up to me, his lips thinned. You thought that was bullshit too, right? Well, I think she was just still in, I don't know, den mother mode with regards to TJ after what you did. If you wanted to get everyone talking again, you should probably apologize. Why is it going dark? There's a pause in the conversation as a cloud covers shades the light coming in from the window. It's not just about the lighter crap. She doesn't give a shit about me, and she really doesn't give a shit about Sydney. I blinked. I'm still amazed at how much his name is being mentioned after all these years of silence on the subject, especially from Flynn. He catches my expression and grunts, the Gilla resting the side of his hip against the sorting counter. When he died, all she fussed about was how it affected TJ. Sid could rot for all she cared. That's not fair. We were kids and people react to that sort of traumatic stuff differently. Maybe helping TJ is what kept her occupied. Oh yeah? Remember a few months before that happened, when all that shit was going on with Sid's dad? And fucking Jenna, all she did was try to shield TJ from all that negativity of the situation. She tried to help, but he was different. I don't know. Fuck, we were just kids. No, she fucking hated Sydney. Carl hated Sydney. Leo hated Sydney. TJ would never admit it, but he hated Sydney. And you hated Sydney. He looked me in the eyes now. I'm quiet for a moment, trying to think of what to say. Flynn, meanwhile, just looks expectant, seemingly waiting for me to blanch and try to defend myself. Sydney was an asshole. He raises his chin some, his crossed arms seemingly to squeeze more tightly over his chest. Yeah, so am I. No, not like him. Nobody knew him like I did. You said that, but that doesn't mean the crap he pulled on us, on TJ, was in any way justified. I'm pretty sure he generally enjoyed watching people get hurt. Flynn stares slack-jawed before quickly gritting his teeth. He liked wrestling. He liked pirates. He liked pulpy Avenger shit. But he did not like hurting people. TJ cried every day, no matter what. He could see a dead fly on a windowsill and start bawling. And you all would drop everything and come rushing to his aid, scorning the shit out of anyone who didn't. We couldn't make jokes. We couldn't tease each other. We couldn't roughhouse. And we couldn't even fucking swear without TJ getting upset. It isn't like we couldn't just go hang out with someone else. This is Echo, and Leo was. It's fucking dead set on keeping the group together. Though now the group for Leo essentially consists of two members, your ass and his cock. I frown deeply. Before I can interject, he continues. When Sydney died, you all convinced yourself he was this fucking monster kid, so that it didn't have to hurt as much. I ain't gonna apologize. Fucking hell, they should. Flynn uncrosses his arms, staring some out the soul window of the cramped mailroom. The cloud cover lifts. I'll be in the front desk. If you take something, always put it back where you found it. He turns, making his way back down the narrow hall. I'm left alone. Everything feels really quiet, a sort of weird solace amidst the shelves upon shelves of Echo's history. I rub my face and muzzle, spinning a whisker, as the previous conversation plays back in my head. With a slow exhale, I turn and head over to the archives. They all seem to be categorized by numbers like 105-66009 or 107-21-001. I grab a random file on the shelf, 106-101-001. Flipping it open, I see a cluster of 15 or so papers and permits for a place called Adelaide's Thrift and Pawn. It sounds familiar and only takes me a little bit more perusing to figure out why. Near the exit of Route 93 to Flint Road, there is this faded old shack of rotten wood. Growing up, all that was left of the sign out front was Elliot's Thrift. Thinking it's bulldozed now, though, since I didn't see it on the drive-in. According to these documents, Adeline Vonberg applied for and successfully obtained a business license and deed to the property in 1979. I'm guessing these folders corresponded to a piece of property within Echo, or a parcel. That helped some, but I still am not sure exactly where to look. I put the file away and moved towards the computer Flynn got ready for me. A screen displays an aerial photograph of Echo with the polygons drawn over it like a bizarre checkerboard. Clicking on one, nothing happens. Clicking again, the pointer turns into an hourglass and the program starts saying that it's not responding. Damn it! As the hourglass rolls on the screen, I think I hear the front door open down the hall. At first, I wonder if it's Carl, but then a voice speaks up that I don't recognize, then Flynn's. I can only make out a little what he says. That's what they told you at the county office? You could have come here? The hourglass spins. The Unicorporation, it shouldn't affect developers who... Finally, a little window pops up listing owner, address, parcel numbers, links to building plans, and other fields. Slow as hell, but it's actually just kind of neat, I guess. Curious, I scroll over the location of my old house and click. This time, it reacts a little faster. The complaint forms are physical, not much of an online presence. That it's currently listed as abandoned and condemned. It looks like the people my parents sold it to ditched it rather quickly. I moved back towards the archive, picking up my old house corresponding file and setting it down on the counter. Opening it, I see a weathered floor plan of my old house dating back to 1986. Nothing here could remotely be considered of interest for my project. However, I put the file back where I found it. As I hear the increasingly quiet rasp of Flynn's voice in the other room, I recognize he's probably too busy to hold my hand in regards to where to look. Especially after the previous conversation, it might be best to give him some space. I stare at the aerial display on the computer monitor, trying to figure out where to start looking. We start at the mine. We always start at the mine. There's something about the old mine that feels off to me. Unlike pretty much every locale in Echo, the mine was the one place we absolutely did not play. Sydney tried to make one of our scavenger hunts objective down in there once, but TJ told his mom about it, and that was the end of it. After looking up the parcel number, I retrieved the corresponding file and laid it out in the mail counter. This one had an archival notice attached to the front. I guess my hunch might be right. Opening the file, the first thing I note is that there is a seriously large amount of documents here, and even a laminated old photo. Huh? That's a hell of a lot more verdant than it is these days. Might have to do something with the damming they did up north in the 50s? I'm guessing that CM 1915 is referring to the year the photo was taken in. Within the folder itself, many of the documents seem to be legal in nature, including documentation about a lawsuit of some sort. The ones on top seem to relate to that tourism program Echo tried a decade ago. There's a few papers about a historical heritage grant and the installation of a bench and 2 lamps outside the mine's entrance. There's even a reference to a large placard installed into the side of the rock face outside, but I don't remember ever seeing that. Following this, there's another folder within that contains some condemned notices and squatter evictions dating from 1970 to 75. The folders also note a work order from the installation of rebar bars in the mine front to pavement. Entry in 1976. Next, there's an actual lawsuit documentation itself. The lawsuit contributed in part of the official closing of the mine during the War of 1942. The working conditions were abysmal, and the owners of the mine were also heavily involved in the town's government. So there was corruption charges as well. The Danica mine was also known as the CSCG, copper, silver, coal, gold mine, was the most in-demand employer in the north portion of the state for decades. Just a little part due to the management by the owners, but rather the natural conditions of the mine itself. The structure of the bedrock kept cave-ins unlikely, and its chemical composition kept the temperature stable and somewhat bearable. Flooding was a minor concern due to the low water table in the region. In other mines within the state, miners may have been expected to stand 2 feet of dirty water in 40-degree temperature, all while the threat of cave-ins loomed and amplified with every strike of a sledgehammer.